This woman secretly drugs her father-in-law. Unbeknownst to her, Paul suddenly wakes up. To save himself, Paul continues to pretend to be asleep. Then, Annie wakes Paul up and hands him a jelly that has been drugged. Paul immediately calls for a nurse. When the nurse arrives, Paul asks her to help him call his son. Soon, Paul's son Jack arrives. Paul creates a will in front of them, leaving 90% of his assets to Annie and Jack and donating the remaining 10% to a charity. Paul believes that by doing this, he will deter his daughter-in-law from harming him. However, his son Jack begins to feel resentful. The two of them walk into the corridor to discuss how to obtain 100% of the inheritance. Annie admits that she has already drugged Paul's jelly, and Jack fully supports her. Unexpectedly, the nurse overhears their conversation. She rushes over to Paul and tells him what she heard. Left with no choice, Paul asks the nurse to cooperate with him to retaliate. After a while, the two return to the room. Paul starts eating the jelly and offers another to Annie and Jack as well. Soon after, Paul faints. The nurse arrives to check on him, showing a sorrowful expression. At that moment, Jack and Annie happily celebrate, but unexpectedly, Paul suddenly wakes up. It turns out that Paul had secretly swapped the two jellies earlier. Jack and Annie end up eating the drugged jelly instead. In the end, Paul compassionately saves both of them and leaves 10% of his inheritance to them while donating the remaining 90% to the charity.